Hi, Su Yin. How are you?
Hi, Pratibha. I'm good, thank you.
Firstly, this is the question that we start with all our guests so far. How's your day been until now?
It's been nice, slow, had a good breakfast, and yeah, ready to go.
Lovely. Okay, so I've studied a little bit about the background and what you've done. You've lived multiple lives, right? As an offshore physicist, okay, then rescue diver, and then a pastry chef
Mhm,
and a triathlete. So, if you see a common thread that is tying all of them through, what is
mhm.
it?
Um, I've always been sort of experimentative in some sense, also conservative, but also experimentative, sort of an equal. Yeah, yeah, it just happens. I didn't plan for like I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna be that. So it's funny how life kind of throws you curveballs and you just go with it. So
Got
yeah.
it. Let's start with the first bit, right? We'll start with the offshore bit,
Hmm.
the geophysics bit. What was that one experiment or one thing that you did that you feel like people have a rare idea about this, but it's very interesting?
So when I tell people like I'm a geophysicist, people assume that it's okay. We carry these backpacks and then we're looking for stones and we're studying stones and all that. So in the context of seismic or oil and gas, geophysics is sort of in between, the acquisition of data and the interpretation of the data that you collect. So what we have is that you get an image of the subsurface of the earth, and usually that image is not is imagine like a photograph that you take, right? That is all like you got all these blurry images or some contamination and on the photograph that you clicked. And so our job is to use geophysics to try and improve that image, and then you get a clearer image of what is in the subsurface of the earth, and then eventually like where reservoirs or potential oil and gas can be found. So I think that's a yeah, that's not quite checking out stones and seeing like where what.
Are we finding diamonds here?
Yeah, diamonds can be also in the same discipline, but it is not what I was working in.
Not in your forte,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, that's right.
Okay, so from studying deep earths
Mm-hmm.
to scuba diving, how
Mm-hmm.
did that happen?
It's so I was already scuba diving. Okay, so I first started scuba diving is because of a case of FOMO.
Okay.
I had friends and they were all saying like let's go learn scuba diving, and so I was a confident swimmer. I am a confident swimmer. In fact I was a lifeguard back in college. So but the idea of scuba diving, like, because that ocean is vast, right? And that idea of like going in there and without much knowledge of how deep the water is, and you're in the middle of nowhere, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. But because my friends were doing it, and then they say come, let's do it. I'm like, okay, let's try it. And my other fear was, when you're at the beach at night and then you hear the waves crashing, it's loud, you can't see anything. That was also my second fear, which was like getting into open water at like sort of pitch black. And when you do scuba diving, you have to face all of that, being out in the vast ocean and diving at night as well. So initially I was quite freaked out, but when you go through the training and then you realize that, this like it's not so bad at all. And then I tried night diving for the first time, which was basically just getting on a boat, going in the middle of the ocean, and then just jumping in and getting into the water.
Got
You
it.
have torchlights and all that, but it was magical. I wouldn't spoil it if because but it is like, yeah, it's I think that exposure helped me to overcome all of those fears. Because then you think like, this is actually kind of fun. So yeah, that's how I got into scuba diving. In case of FOMO.
Lovely. And now that you mentioned the amount of risks involved in the
Mm.
fields that you work in, have you felt the moments where you truly know you've pushed your limits? This is not something which I can do, but I'm going to push my limits anyway.
Okay. So so when I first started off as a geophysicist, I was working in an office setting, which is kind of, it's routine and it's safe and everything. Then I got so then I applied to work offshore. I wanted I was a bit sort of, I guess, what's that word? um, I didn't I didn't enjoy the kind of routine that I was having. I wanted something different. I want to try. So that's when the experimentative part of me comes in. And so yeah, so in terms of pushing my limits, when you're working in a ship, like it's a big vessel, you're handling a lot of heavy machinery. This is all something that's very foreign to me, right? Because you grew up in I would say sheltered, but it's all very safe kind of, people who operate heavy machinery is just not within my scope or what I'm comfortable with. But when you're there, like this is what you're expected to do. There's a lot of even laborious work that you have to do, like sort of manual labor, carrying stuff and things like that. Because even it doesn't matter if you're a professional or whatever on the ship, because the crew is limited, so you're expected to just pick up the slack and help out. I actually enjoyed that. Like some people, they feel like, oh, manual labor is kind of beneath me. I don't want to do that. But there is like it's a mix of both, and so you spend a lot of time with the crew. So they're kind of like your family on the vessel, and they take care of you. And obviously, like there's a very small percentage of female people, on board because of the nature of the work. So you do get like the crew who look after you, and you feel very. It's nothing like what if it might be portrayed sometimes on the ship or so. Yeah, I think the pushing my limits was just being thrown out there and just figuring out doing all of these things. Yeah.
Lovely. So, in terms of the vessel, right? Like you mentioned, I'm curious to know what a day in life would look like on a vessel. Like, what would you do? Like, okay, you would get up and be like, okay, I'm between an ocean. Now what are we going to do?
So initially, the first couple of days when you land on the boat, on the ship, you for me, I have to fight the seasick, the motion
Absolutely
sickness. Yeah,
right.
because like yeah, and that usually takes about a day or so. But I mean, you're expected to go to work straight away. You're not you can't like just rest because like it's time is money on a vessel. So you work 12 hours a day, two shifts. So either you're in a night shift or the day shift. And what I do is like I'll get up and then have your breakfast, and then you get into work, and then you see what's happening. Sometimes there may be issues because like so on a exploration vessel you have these long cables. They're like 8 to 10 kilometers long, tied behind the ship. So that's where you have all of these receivers on the streamers, which collect data, and this can be as wide as like maybe 500 meters wide. So that is a huge scope.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so sometimes you get things tangled on because so on these receivers they're called birds. They're like about year size, and you have an air gun in the back of the boat which goes boom, and then so the explosion is what gets reflected on the subsurface and then gets collected by all of these streamers. So these
So, what are we
birds.
using these receivers specifically for, though? Like, what are we figuring out through these receivers?
This is collecting noise, sort of data. What's that word I'm looking for?
Like using sound
Sound.
to.
Sorry, yeah, sound data. Because it gets reflected, so it gets recorded. Every subsurface will record a different time where it's received. So with that time, you get to know you have the velocity, and then so you get to know what is the depth eventually once you get everything gets processed. So then you get the layers of the earth at some point. So these birds, you get things caught like garbage from the sea, or even sometimes it's all some issues with the birds which you have to fix them. And so you get on a small a boat, and then we go out to the sea, and then you kind of fix it. And yeah, so that's also part of the scope of what we do. And otherwise, like we sit in front of a computer, and then we process the data, sort of try to assess what kind of processes we can do to clear up the data. So that's and your meetings, safety, and all sorts of yeah. That
How many people would be on a single vessel, though? And how do they divide the projects? Like, are they going to be like the regional specific projects, or is it going to be intentional specific, saying, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, project basis? How does it work?
so we would have clients are going to be oil companies like
Okay.
Exxon or Esso or when we were working in India, it was shit, my memory is just what is a big company, ONGC, and yeah, so these are the companies who hire us as the seismic contractor. And sorry, brain fart. What was your question again?
No, I was asking if in case of when you go on a vessel, like what would the objective of the vessel set to be as? Like,
Right,
is
okay.
it region specific or is it like project specific?
Okay, so these companies will hire us to cover like to perform a survey on a certain area where they suspect there may be potential oil and gas
Oil
reservoirs.
reserve.
So then it's usually a project base, and in the company there will be approximately, like, I mean, there's, depending on how big the company is, there'll be maybe between 10 to 30 or 50 vessels, and these are like huge vessels. Some of them are luxurious vessels, and some of them more basic vessels. So when I first started, it's more of a basic vessel. It's like an older ship, but it's a well-loved ship because she's been there for a long time and she's stable and all of those things. But the fancier ships, there will be, there's like a huge gym, there's even swimming pools,
Oh.
cinema. So that's like I think,
Fancier.
yeah, they're sort of trying to improve the quality of workspace for the crew on board, because it can be, yeah, it's a hard job. And so, yeah, that's kind of just to get people to be a bit more relaxed and off when they're off shift.
Like thinking about workspace, right? I was thinking about how they judge workspaces right now, like tech parks and stuff. So like, okay, how much amount of green do you have? Do you have good coffees in your?
Yeah, that's a way. So we have a lot of French crew on board. So like there has to be good bread, and so that was one of the and good cheeses. So those were the non-compromise items that goes on board. Yeah.
Lovely. And with respect to scuba diving, right? I know that you've done your rescue diver course and you're a rescue diver yourself.
Yes.
How did that happen? Like scuba diving for recreation is different and doing in open water is different and advanced is also okay. But turning into a rescue diver, what made you feel like you have to get into that?
It's as a diver, although I'm a good diver, but I always lacked that self-confidence underwater. I'm not sure what it was, but I would always kind of have these scenarios in my mind where, oh my gosh, what if this happens and what if that happens? So I thought, okay, it's time to just kind of level up in that sense. And so that's when I did my rescue course. It's a tough course, but you also learn a lot and then you improve because you're exposed to different scenarios, where what things could happen, and then at a certain time, because you diving is usually a very calm activity, and something happens, and then how do you respond to it? So that kind of gets drilled in a rescue course, and I find that it's helped with my confidence underwater as well. Yeah.
And I think a part of the course is also about you carrying weights and coming up until the surface, right? I think when I was training and when I was asked, like, can you see if you can lift this weight underwater and come up? I was like, no, I cannot. Like, not at the moment. Is there something specific that you're going to train to make it happen?
So one of those was trying to lift someone heavy, like a sort of in a fireman lift, or dragging someone from the shore. And I had Vandit to do that because he's about 90 kgs. In context, I'm about 50 kgs, so I had to try and lift him or drag him to a place. So that was yeah. So I mean, there are methods to do it, but yeah, that's I think that's probably the closest to. I mean, there's also other methods, like if someone maybe falls unconscious while on the dive, what do you do how do you support them to get up to the surface and then provide air support before you find a boat? Yeah, so those are the things that.
And like you mentioned, right, in rescue diving at least, it's more about staying calm in the chaos. Has that carried over to other phases of your life as well?
I believe so, yeah. And so I think all of that exposure, like being on the vessel as well, it's because when shit happens, like it's something that may be huge. So you kind of I wouldn't say you're used to it, but you kind of you're mentally conditioned for that kind of in case something happens. So like, to give you an example, one of the requirements before working offshore is that you have to do a course which is called the. I'll get back to you what the name of the course is. What happens is that because you get on a chopper, a helicopter, from land, and then basically that chopper brings you directly to the boat because the boat is not always on at the port, and it's in the middle of the ocean somewhere. So the fastest way is to get with via a chopper, and in the event that the chopper crashes in the ocean, and because helicopters are top heavy, so when it crashes in the water, it will turn upside down. So one of the courses that you have to do is to get on a mock helicopter. So you're strapped in because as you have to be in a helicopter, and so that mock helicopter will submerge in the water and it will turn upside down, and then in that time you have to figure out to release yourself and swim and sort of like open up the one of the windows and get out of the chopper. So yeah, that's
Is this
it's
training?
This is a training. It's a certificate that you must have. It's called a Bosiet course. Uh, that's a pre-requirement if you were to work in an offshore. So it's just being exposed to that kind of not sort of everyday things that you will encounter. I think that has helped to kind of shape your mind. Like, okay, this is happening, and so what do you just get rid of that chaos, like that surprise or the shock, and try to see what you can do at that point of time. So I think that has helped because yeah. So I think prior to this, I would probably, if something happens, I'd be like, oh gosh, what's going to happen? You're just in that shock. And after that, the conditioning has helped to sort of, okay, just, okay, what can you do now? Just forget that shock. What can you do now? So yeah, that's.
My God.
That is scary because it has happened. Like, I mean, you think it's training. So there's a crew who's opposite my shift, and apparently there was a very bad weather or there was some kind of failure. And the helicopter did crash in water because water is probably the best. You don't want it to crash on land because
right.
the survival will be a lot less. And yeah, so it's not sort of, that's why it's a high risk job as well. So
True. My God. This sounds like a very natural version of action movies.
I know, yeah, it is, but yeah, it probably sounds a lot more exciting, but I mean, it is pretty, yeah.
Lovely. So, when did endurance sports happen amongst all of this?
Endurance sport happened when we both randomly thought, okay, so my husband Vandit, he's a cyclist. I've not been very sort of athletically inclined. I mean, I've done some. I enjoy doing weights at the gym, but not quite endurance sports per se. So we both randomly thought, okay, let's sign up for an Ironman Goa, which was in 2019. This was a half Ironman event.
Okay,
And
folks who don't know what Ironman is.
okay, so Ironman is a triathlon race which has is a fixed distance. So what was hosted in Goa is a half Ironman, and that distance is 1,800 meters of swim, followed by a 90-kilometer bike, and then you finish with a half marathon, which is a 21.1 run. And if it's a full marathon, you double all of that. So that means 3,600 meter swim, 180K bike, and then the full marathon, a 42 kilometer run.
Sounds fun.
So and because Ironman is a brand, and when they're hosting it, it's a well organized event. You can be sure of that. It's also a festive atmosphere. So I mean, I didn't know all of that when we first just blindly said, like, let's sign up for this race.
So that was your first triathlon, right?
That was my first triathlon. Yeah, I mean, that was the first triathlon that I signed up for, and so because of the idea, the notion of such a tough event, it makes you feel a little bit scared, and to the point, okay, you have to train for it. It's not you can't just like, okay, let's do a few swims, let's do a few runs, and then let's go for it. In fact, the training we took like a 6-month training plan to.
Can you break down the training for us? Sounds very exciting.
Say again?
Can you break down the training? For us?
So with all endurance training plans, you can't just jump into it. Like you can't just suddenly have like a huge bulk of volume. So it's a very gradual plan, which you slowly increase the duration and the work that you do. At that time, my training, I think in a week, you're training about between 7 to 10 hours a week with one rest day. and because it's 3 sports, so it gets pretty hectic in that sense. Like it's a really busy schedule. You have to be committed to it. You have sometimes you have 2 workouts a day, and you have the strength session as well to go with it. So yeah, um, it will be, let's say the first day might be like 1 swim and a run. Second day will be like maybe 1.5 hours of bike, and then the third day will be maybe a gym session, a strength session with, let's say, another bike session. So, and the weekends will be longer, maybe 2 hours on the bike, followed by, let's say, half an hour run. I think the toughest training plan that I had was on a weekend, 3 hours on the bike, and then followed by like an hour and a half run. So like almost 4.5 hours of
My
work,
God.
and that's just the training. That's not even the race yet. But
Event.
yeah, so it's all about adjusting your body to perform for longer duration, and yeah. So
But what made you commit to this though? Like, I'm sure the training must be hard enough for you to be like, am I doing the right thing? Do we need all of this? I think we are happy.
it's it's weird because I think I have an OCD in the sense that if I have a to-do list, so if I have a training plan which is like in my to-do list, I at all costs I have to get it done. Otherwise it's in my head like, oh, I got it, I still haven't done this, and I feel very sort of agitated. So that was like more than the motivation of doing well at the race. Having that to-do list and finishing that, it was yeah. So that helped, and I really enjoyed the discipline of it as well, because like you can see the changes in your body, like how you're fitter. I mean, some days you wake up so tired, like your whole body is sore, like you just don't want to do this. But on some days also you feel really great, like, oh my gosh, this is a hard session, but hey, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna smash it. So there were days like that, but being consistent really really helps, because you see the results. Like, when, let's say, at a certain pace you're running, and you feel like, let's say you're doing that pace last month and you're struggling with it, but this time you're doing it, and then you feel, hey, like, this is, I could do better. So that's also another motivation, because you see that the hard work you've put in is coming to
Reaping somewhere.
fruition. Yeah.
Yeah. But do you think people who are starting right now to prepare for a half marathon, do they need a personal trainer?
So if you are just starting out, even a generic training plan will be beneficial. Like any any sort of extra additional training or structured training will work in your favor. In terms of personal trainer or coaches, it's a great way to adapt to your schedule. If, like, you have a lot of changes in the schedule, sometimes you're traveling and sometimes this is happening. So a coach can help to sort of change your training plan based on how things are working out, how what's available. Maybe you're traveling, you don't have access to a bike, but you can run. So having a coach is great that way. But if you're just starting out, even a generic training plan will help. It's
Yeah.
just any plan will
Just start.
just start. Yeah, that's having and a structured plan is also important, because you can't just go out and I'm going to smash 5K tomorrow, I'm going to smash 5K again, because your body is not is it will not get better that way if you just keep putting it through hard workouts. It has to get rest, and then you have to work on different effort levels. So sometimes you put in, let's say, you do anaerobic levels, or sometimes you have to do like long base runs, so that it helps with your cardiovascular support, cardiovascular system. So yeah, it's more complicated than like smashing runs on a
Yeah.
daily basis. Yeah.
So like when we think of exercising as well, right? That is one thing that's easy because you don't have to use your brain. When you're thinking that, okay, if I have to run 5K every single day for 30 days, you don't have to use your brain there. So, and it's a system that you've created for yourself. That is one way of looking at things, just to build discipline. But at the same time, like you mentioned, it's very important to make sure that you're training all parts of your muscles, and
Yeah.
it's also very important for you to train everything that is required for the race. Like, it's not just the runs, right?
Exactly. Yeah. What are you training for, right? If it's a fast run, then you adapt your training plan to that kind of that fast run. If it's a long marathon, then it's also a different style of training for that's more endurance based, and having that kind of stamina to complete long distance.
At what stage did you get your personal trainer though?
I So I had for my Ironman event, I had like a training plan, which is an 80-20 training plan, which is really great. And then so I
So
thought
sorry,
that
the 80-20 training plan is
okay, so the 80-20 training plan is basically 80% of base and then 20% of like hard, you know, like, threshold work and so basically you're spending more time working on your on I wouldn't say it's slow. It's like a base to run. So your heart rate is at a point where it's still kind of conversational, but you do a lot of those, and those are great for your aerobic capacity. And then the other 20% is like peppered off with like hard effort, sprints effort, or you know, sweet spot effort. That sort of thing. Yeah.
got it.
Mm.
And which amongst the three was difficult for you though?
Which amongst others?
The three sports that Ironman
Right.
would include?
Ironically, so I mentioned that I was a lifeguard, so I am a confident swimmer. I find that swim trainings were the most like just mentally hard, tough for me, and I
Why is
think
that though?
yeah,
Especially
it's
when you were when you've trained and especially when you have experience in the open waters as well, right?
I think also they're more social sports. Like cycling is more social. I mean,
Hmm.
swimming can be social, but you can't
Speak.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. You can speak after like a couple of laps, but it's so I think that adds to the whole interest in cycling and yeah.
How was your swim sessions like though, especially with respect to training?
So you have say a certain distance you cover, and then sometimes let's say a number of laps is you're supposed to do it at certain maybe faster at
Pace and
yeah
stuff.
like a medium moderate pace or
Hmm.
sometimes really fast pace. So that kind of all builds. It's similar to running as well. Sometimes you do sprints, sometimes you do tempo runs, sometimes you do like long steady runs. So it's a similar concept to that.
So this is more about the training and discipline,
Oh,
right?
sorry, and also with swims you do drills as well.
Okay.
So
Drill
drills are like
session.
a kicking drill. So you just focus on doing kicks,
Ah.
and then some of that you do like it's called sculling.
Mhm.
So you're just basically doing this.
Threading.
Yeah, treading water is a bit different. So
Mhm.
sculling is like basically practicing your hand form. So
Mhm.
when you're doing the freestyle, you're pulling water, and then that makes it more efficient for when you're swimming. So
Hmm.
yeah, so that's some of the drills that you do. For swim.
Lovely. So this was more about the discipline part of it, right?
Mhm.
But what about the nutrition?
Okay, so yeah, it's been said that with endurance sports, nutrition or in a triathlon, nutrition is like the fourth discipline that you have to be aware and you have to experiment a lot as well. And so on race days, I would normally have gels because those are most effective in terms of um, glucose conversion to energy. Whereas on training days, normally I just have like you're carb loading a lot. You're taking a lot of carbs because carbohydrates are what gives you the energy to sustain endurance sports. And so on training days, I'll maybe have bananas, or sometimes before a run, or a cycling, maybe I have some white bread with peanut butter or jam. And yeah, so I try to make it as sustainable as possible because too much gel is also not. I mean, because they come in packets and all that, it's a lot of plastic waste.
Processing and
Yeah, and also gels they're sweet, so they in terms of it can make your teeth decay, that kind of. Anyway, like yeah, if you have time to do it, I can just make myself something to support. On rice, I have bananas, sometimes like a energy bar, that sort of yeah. But that's definitely a lot of carbs for that's carbs is king for in
for
endurance
endurance
sport.
sports.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think Indian audience would be very happy about it because in general our culture is loaded with carbs, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't need extra carb loading, maybe.
And carbs are tasty, so
Yeah,
I yeah. Pasta, white rice.
absolutely. So we've spoken about the discipline and the nutrition bit as well, right? What was
Mhm.
your first experience like after your first triathlon? What did you feel?
Okay, so before the Ironman race, I did a race in Singapore. This was a shorter race, so
Okay.
not as long. It's called an Olympic distance race,
A
and
triathlon as well? Was it?
it's also a triathlon.
Okay.
And Olympic distance is basically, I'll come back to you with the distances because now it's like I think it's about 1 kilometer swim. I might be wrong. 1 kilometer swim, or and actually I just quickly Google it so that you don't have to take another. Olympic distance is 1.5 kilometer swim, and and a 40K bike, and then followed by a 10K run. So it's a shorter one, and I thought that it'll be a good trial run to see how I fare. And it was a very good decision in that sense because you can plan as much, but then you encounter a lot of glitches on race days that you would not have expected. So we were talking about open water swims, right, earlier, and one of the one of the things that weren't I wasn't prepared for was like the rush of people when they get in the water. Like because you when you're swimming, you usually looking downwards. So here you have to sight, you have to see where you're going, especially when the water is not crystal clear. You can't really see where you're going, so you have to lift up your head and sort of, because you don't want to be inefficient and make like a curve towards your wherever
Goal.
point you're supposed to go. So that sighting and then having, like legs and hands like smashing into you, and that's a lot of proximity because everybody's trying to get that most
Efficient
effective
route.
effective course to the finish line. So yeah, that was a learning phase, and also certain nutrition as well, like what works. I was carrying some chocolate bars, and I realized that was a really bad idea because chocolate was just melting, and they just make stains all over. So yeah, just sort of a few things that you once you done it, then you realize like what works and what does not work. So, and for the Ironman race, it was it was very well organized, and it was hard. So because Goa, right? So it's humid, it's warm, and but I had a lot of fun because it's a very festive atmosphere. A lot of people came out to cheer for the friends, and they all line up on the side. They all like there's they all cheering, and you feel just buoyed by that sense of that festivity, and so you keep pushing yourself because you're in a phase of pain because you know when it's hot like that, you lose a lot of salt as well. So there's like cramps, and people do get cramps. So you have to. That's the other thing with nutrition, that you have to make sure that you're taking salts and electrolytes to avoid potential cramps. So
Got it. When you're mentioning about this entire race thing, right? I see there's a lot of mental fatigue that you should get through along with the physical one.
yes,
How do you handle that?
okay. Mental fatigue is you also get that a lot in training when you're training, and one is mental fatigue, and the other one is like the pain kind of fatigue, right? Where you can attune. I mean, okay, physical pain where you can push your mind to just kind of overcome that. Like you think to yourself, okay, pain is temporary, but if you stop now, like that's gonna be forever. So on when you're training on these training plans that you get, that's when also you're conditioning your mind to get used, and your body to get used to this kind of effort, and the kind of pain and the soreness that comes afterwards. So it's all, so you're kind of prepared for that. And the mental fatigue, because like the Ironman race is a long race. It can be between 5.5, 6. For some people up to like maybe 8 hours. It's a long race, so you do have to be mentally strong. Even if not mentally strong, like you just, I guess it boils down to like how much you want to finish this. How much do you want to do
How
this?
badly do you want it?
Yes. How badly do you want it? And that keeps you going, because like, okay, then also you're just don't think too much about what else is left. Like, okay, like, oh, I've covered this much. Okay, just maybe 1 kilometer more. Let's do another 1 kilometer. When you get to that 1 kilometer, okay, 1 more kilometer, let's go. So you kind of, you don't focus on like how much work has been, that is not yet done, but focus on what I can do now. Let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. So I think that's like
That
a
helps.
that's like a phrase, yeah, that helps.
So, in terms of the number of races that you've done, how many races have you done so far? Have
Oh,
you counted?
triathlon, I've done two of the half Ironmans. I've done a number of competitive cycling racing, like ITTs, road races, some a couple of actually no, there's another BMF triathlon race. So yeah, I think I don't know. I'm like in total, completely maybe at least 15, 20 in the past in the past 6 years. Yeah. I started doing all of that in 2019 for the Goa race. So yeah, I think that sounds a bit too little. Maybe I'll get back to you on that. Feels like there's more. But yeah, there's a lot of local races which I've also done, and some bigger ones as well.
Which one was the hardest one for you, though?
Oh, I would say there's two of the. No, hang on. Yeah. So one, after I've done the 2019 Goa race, I qualified for the World Championship as well, and so I started training for that, and then in 2022, that's when after COVID, that's when races started opening up again. So I've been training for like 2-3 years, and I have been very disciplined, and that's you sacrifice a lot of that time that you could be traveling and doing other fun stuff, but I was focused on training. And in 2022, about 2 weeks before the race, which I've trained for the past 3 years, I had COVID. I got COVID, yeah, and so that was, I mean, I I recovered. I mean, it was moderately affected me in terms of how COVID goes, like breathing and fatigue levels and all that. But I thought I'll still give it a shot because I've trained for so long, and so I went for the race. It was really hard because you're so fatigued and yeah. So that was in fact I still beat my previous time, but it could have been much more. And yeah, so that's one of I think that I have 3 really hard races that I've done. So that was one of them. 2 weeks post COVID. The other one was a cycling. It was a road race in Chennai, and so road race is where I joined. Like there are guys as well. It's like there's no women category and that race was, I remember, like pushing so hard because it's just I was on the raid from the start to the end, and I was very proud of myself in that race, even though I didn't get podium. But I just wanted to hang on with the main group, and I did that. So I was just very happy with that. Yeah, because it's a lot of mental strength, because I wanted to quit so badly, because I imagine you're in the raid and then you just want to take a break, but you can't, because once you lose the pack, like you get dropped off. You won't recover that kind of speed. So I stayed on with the group, and yeah. So that was and the third one was I did a tour of Tekadi, which happened about a month back. That was also really tough. It was the longest distance race I done, which is
That
100.
was cycling, is it?
That was cycling, yeah. So it's 145k. There's a lot of big climbs, 145k and almost 3,000 meters of elevation. So this is in Kerala as well. So it was warm, and it was also a really tough race. And I wasn't 100% prepared for it. I came back from a holiday, a month in Malaysia, and then I came back. I had about 3 weeks of preparation, and then I went for this race. But I expected it to be hard, so that was that three
So
of the
you're mentally
hardest.
prepared for it.
I was mentally prepared to suffer a lot, and I did suffer. So, but it's beautiful. Like, the terrain is just fantastic.
Lovely. So, is there something about triathlon that the non-triathletes do not realize, or they say, "Hey, this is easy"?
In terms of triathlon,
Or any of your friends who've not taken up the sport, it's just like, okay, what is the reason that you do all of this? Like, what is the point? What would you tell them?
I think once you've done a race, then you find that, wow, the kind of how the effort that you put in, and you don't get a lot of rewards from it, in that sense, like you not fanfare or no, let me scratch. Let's do that again. I think part of it is that the beauty from the sport is how much effort you put in, and just the what you reap from it, like the in terms of endorphins, in terms of like that the nailing like a really hard workout, knowing that you had the mental strength to do it. It's all of that is much more than the achievement that you whether you receive or not afterwards.
Okay. What is the biggest mistake do you think that a triathlete starting right now does?
I would say pushing yourself too much.
Is that bad?
It's yeah. I mean, you come to a point where you may be overdoing it, that your body comes to it just gets burnt out, and that can actually sometimes take. I mean, it will. It's a long. It doesn't happen overnight. Like if you're constantly abusing it, and like over a period of time, then at one point your body just it's just gonna it just not breaks down in that sense, because it doesn't have enough time to recover, and it may take like weeks or sometimes months to come back, or sometimes some people maybe years as well. So recovery is and rest is just as important as your workout sessions, and I think that's when people like they get they think that improving means putting in extra work. I mean, it kind of is, but to some extent, it has to be optimized. Yeah.
So, how do I know if I'm at the stage of burning out or if I'm pushing myself enough?
That's so that's when a training plan comes in very handy, because when you're new to the sport, you don't know what to expect and what can be done and what cannot be done. And so when you're constantly pushing yourself at the limit, your body is not getting enough rest, your muscle breaks down and it's not recovering. So it's yeah, you at one point you find that even though you're putting a lot of effort, but you're not improving. And in fact, then it gets worse, and your whatever progress is, it just backtracks. So that's not the place you want to be.
So, I think if in case someone is in that position, it's probably because the rest and recovery is not in point yet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you should always have. I mean, in general, if you're working, if you're doing a training plan, you have 1 day of rest. Usually, that's the general. But it's also depends like how hard you're going. Sometimes because like when you go to the gym and you're carrying weights and all that, your muscle also breaks down. So yeah. So I mean, I'm not a coach, so I can't advise on where at what point do you stop. So I think having an expert or a coach or a training plan, that's like a very
That
good
helps.
guideline to that you can can base on.
Got it. Okay, so I have this one interesting section for you. So it's called myth or a fact.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing is you must train every single day to be a good triathlete.
Myth.
Okay. How often should you train?
So it depends on what kind of volume you're used to at one point, at now. I mean, at any point, and then you gradually ramp up the volume. So never like if you're used to doing 1 kilometer run today, you don't suddenly do a 10 kilometer run tomorrow. You add on maybe 10% every week. You slowly ramp up, and then your body gets used to it, and then that's a more balanced way to do it. I know some people maybe they say that okay, I can do a full marathon tomorrow, and you can do
do
it,
it,
but
but
you
it's-
end up with injuries and worst cases that you might be something irreversible. So that's not a place you want to be as well.
Got it. Carb loading the night before a race makes you faster.
It won't make you faster, but it will make you have enough gas in your tank. And you also have, depending on your race format, you have to keep feeding yourself.
Got it. So it is important to carb load yourself
It
as much
is
as
it
possible.
is important to couple yourself, but yeah, but it doesn't make you faster. That comes in the training.
Swimming is the hardest leg of a triathlon.
Oh, uh, I think it depends. I wouldn't say it's a myth or fact. It depends on on an individual basis. So usually the run is the hardest because you're probably gassed out after the first two discipline, and then when the run comes, you're like, oh gosh,
Another run, my
and a half marathon run or a full marathon run.
got it. Triathletes don't eat junk food.
Myth. I eat a lot of junk food, and I think that is the
Is that your
reward.
carb loading?
That is, yeah. No, carb loading. I wouldn't eat junk food because you want something sort of non-spicy stuff so that you don't get gastro issues on your race day the next day. So usually have something plain and like maybe curd rice or pasta, something just like that. Something is that as boring as possible, and so that the expected. There's not going to be some funky stuff you have to be dealing with the next day. But going back to that, I think having junk food is like your reward. I mean, yeah, you've worked so hard, so you get cheat days. So yeah.
What is your favorite junk food?
I would say probably fried chicken. Yeah, I absolutely love fried chicken.
Lovely. You don't need strength training for endurance sports.
Myth. I mean, strength training is it's essential, and especially for women. I think a lot of women, like at the age of 35, your bones they degrade, and doing strength training it helps you strengthen your back. So that's really really important for women especially, and I mean even across for men as well. Like I mean, you want to be able to arrive at an age and an senior age where you are able to do your business without support. So that's doing weights is like squats, especially squats, is very important.
Got it. Okay. So the next section is would you rather?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Would you rather run a marathon in extreme heat or cycle 180 kilometer in a heavy rain?
Cycle
In a heavy rain.
in a heavy rain because I absolutely with heat is just so hard. Like I mean, how many layers can you peel off? In the rain is actually kind of fun because
in a heavy rain. I mean, is it going to be slippery?
in fact, some of the training plans, some of the training I've done is through monsoon as well. So it can be beautiful. Like I mean, it can be a mix of misery and beauty. But yeah, I'll take the rain. It cools you down.
Okay. Swim with a minor leg cramp or bike with a flat tire?
Oh, you probably swim with a minor leg cramp. Bike with a flat tire is just gonna be, yeah, it's not good for the bike as well, and
Yeah.
and you're not, yeah.
Okay. Compete with zero sleep the night before or on an empty stomach?
Oof. Zero sleep the night before. Empty stomach is not gonna. You're just gonna bonk.
Isn't sleep important?
Sleep is important, but between the two, like you guys are making it quite hard as well.
Okay.
With an empty stomach, you're just gonna suffer as well. Zero sleep is kind of. You can still kind of fight it, but yeah.
You can just push yourself a little bit more.
Yeah. Without that energy, there's nowhere you can.
True.
You can move on.
Race against your biggest rival or race against your past self's best time?
Oh, I think past self, yeah. It's,
Okay.
I like to. I like to be able to compete with myself rather than because yeah, it's. I think that's more motivation to that.
Got it. Finish last in an Ironman or never start at all?
Finish last in an Ironman.
Is
Like
it?
because I had COVID and then I was at that point I was prepared not to have a personal best. I just wanted to finish it, and yeah, finishing is better than not starting at all, for sure, 100%.
Makes sense. Okay, one word answers.
Mhm.
Your worst pre-race habit.
Nerves.
Okay.
Yeah.
As in?
Just like self-doubt and nerves kind of this thing, like sometimes when before a race you're just clouded with all of this, like, oh, I'm gonna be a mess, I'm not gonna hit my target. So I think that's the worst thing that anyone can that kind of self-doubt is, because it will change the course of your race.
Got it. One thing every new triathlete should buy.
Definitely a smart, like a what do you call it, like a fitness tracker.
Does that
So
help?
I mean, it helps. It's probably the most I won't say basic, but it helps you to track. So in that sense, like like you're running, how much distance you're doing. So you kind of need something like that, and what kind of pace you're doing. So you get all of that data as well, and then you can pour over them
Optimize.
and see what went wrong. Or
Which one do you use?
so actually I have a bunch of them, because like cycling, we use a cycling head unit computer, and then we're running. I have a Garmin Forerunner. So I think Garmin is the main thing in all of those. And as a triathlete, like you can get these triathlon watches, fitness watches as well. So you can swim in them, run with them, cycle with them. So yeah, that's at least that.
Lovely. Okay. A song that gets you pumped up before a race.
A particular song, I would say techno. I wouldn't say like one particular song, but like yeah, just techno.
Okay. The best feeling after finishing a race.
Oh, this relief. And
Like, oof, that's
yeah,
your
it's
word.
like yeah, it's the best feeling ever. Once you cross that finish line, like oh, like this weight that's been lifted off from your shoulders.
True. Okay. So we'll get to the sweeter section of the podcast, right?
Okay.
How did a geophysicist, an endurance athlete, end up in pastry?
So I was a I was working on a vessel offshore,
Mhm.
and I realized that because you're away half of your life from major events, and is fantastic for someone who's single without, if you don't have a partner or children, because I mean you get to travel to a lot of exotic places. And because I've seen my colleagues, and they have newborn child, they're missing out key milestones, like them walking for the first time and all that. So I at one point, and that was also when the industry dipped. So I thought that, and I was dating my current husband, then boyfriend, and this it's not a sustainable occupation to be going on. So I thought, okay, let's try something else. That's when I signed up for. In fact, I've always been fascinated by culinary and pastry arts. So I thought, let's give this a shot. I mean, evidently there's something is an extra skill that you can acquire. So I did a 1 year pastry course, and I even by the first week I loved it, because the pastry arts is a science, and it's a mix of science and creativity. Science in the sense that baking is a science, and creativity, but you can decide like what kind of flavors, or, what kind of how do you decorate this, is so it's limitless. It's yeah. And yeah, never looked back since then.
Yeah, you mentioned the culinary arts and the pastry skills differently. How different are they though?
Culinary is more a savory side of things, and the pastry arts is the sweeter. That's the main sort of a difference. Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it. And what does baking give you that these other pursuits that you have don't?
I would say baking is a very tangible form of, you know, process. Like you're handling flours, and turning all of these things, flour, sugar, eggs, and then it turns out into something that's like really delicious. And I think that's the best part, because when you work in a large company or a big corporation, like your role is like just like a one drop in a pond. So I think that's the best thing, like, because you're in control, right? Like how you tweak it, and that's like the probably the best. You're in control of how the outcome comes.
Got it. Okay. They say precision is the key in both baking and science. Do you ever approach your pastries with an analytical mindset?
Definitely, all the time. Yeah,
Okay. Like how?
so sometimes when something that you expect to turn out in a certain way, it doesn't, and then that's when the scientific part comes in. Like, okay, these are the processes. What have I done wrong? What could have caused, like, let's say a cake has a dent in the middle. What could have that been from which part of the process? So that's a definitely a very analytical mindset that comes in too.
Okay, one very offhanded question. Um, so I'm sure you're experimenting with a lot of pastries, right? Who eats them? I mean, like I know you're into fitness, one that is also into fitness, but who is eating all these pastries?
Yeah, so experiments, they usually happen in smaller batches, so that's not, if it flops, like you don't get a lot of wastage and all that. So and I think I'm at a point where most experiments kind of because you know what should go into them and all that, so that nothing gets thrown away in that sense. Sometimes I give them away, sometimes like yeah, sometimes if I have like customers who order stuff, like I can just send them some. So yeah,
Extra
otherwise
goodies.
otherwise they get eaten at home, so they never go to waste.
Got it. So, what is the most challenging pastry that you've mastered until now?
I would say the Japanese cheesecake is
Okay.
yeah. So it's called a Japanese cotton soft cheesecake. It's like a fluffy form of cheesecake. Eh, it's the hardest part is not really just. I mean, it is complicated to get them right, but to get them sort of with a perfect sort of without collapsing, without having a lot of cracks on the surface. I think that's the one pursuit that I was constantly working on in my earlier days, just to get it perfect. So I think that's the hardest one that I've tried to perfect. And whereas for hard um, processes for other case would be like the modern French pastries. That's also really tough ones because they have maybe 5 6 components in a pastry, and you know, like the glaze temperature has to be right and etc. So it's that's yeah.
Got it. My God, I did not know it's this how to make a pastry. Like it's very easy for us to eat,
Yeah,
but
oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
okay. So I would ask you for a
Mm-hmm.
very small pastry recipe,
Mm-hmm.
a healthy pastry recipe
Mm-hmm.
that the viewers can try. And
Okay.
okay, let's assume the nature of viewers.
Mm-hmm.
They've not baked or cooked until now. This is the first
Okay.
time they would want to try something.
Okay. I would say banana cake.
Okay.
It's wholesome, and it's you should get them. You should have them in your pantry, like flour, jaggery, uh, bananas,
You can make
obviously.
pastries out of jaggery.
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay.
You get jaggery powder also, so like
Mm-hmm.
they're a bit easier, so you don't get like the block ones. The
Mm-hmm.
powder ones
Mm-hmm.
you can just replace them in, you know, in place of white sugar, so it's healthier, and I find that more fragrant as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and yeah, and it's wholesome. Like bananas, you get them, so it's that's a pretty good recipe to try.
Lovely. Okay. So a few questions before we close out, right? You've listening to all of this that we've spoken so far, I feel like you treat life like a grand experiment, right? According to you, do you see a pattern in everything that you've done so far?
I I I don't see like an obvious pattern, but it's funny because I mean a lot of these things just happen.
Serendipitous? Serendipity? What is that word? I forgot.
Serendipity, yeah.
Serendipity,
I
correct.
suppose in that sense, like I mean, I didn't plan for scuba diving to happen, which also changed because I through scuba diving that's when I met my husband, and then it's just a very gradual thing of, I guess, keeping an open mind and trying out when an opportunity comes. Like don't try not to turn them down and give it a shot. If things seems hard, you know, just try to push through it. I mean that's more of a philosophy rather than, but that's kind of what's gotten me to here.
What would you advise to someone who is going through a career transition right now?
I I would say make sure you have a plan B. I mean, as in like whatever you're pursuing now, make sure that whatever you're doing before is still accessible, because I mean it's a practical decision. Like I I mean I can just say like, hey, go chase your dreams and all that, but sometimes things don't work out. You need to have something to fall back on. So yeah.
Got it. So, if you had to give one piece of advice for somebody who's feeling stuck on one single path that they're trying, do you think that they should give up or continue, keep going?
I think just keep an open mind as well. Like try different things, because you never know when an opportunity comes out. You know, acquire different skill sets, because yeah, they will always be handy. I mean, no matter certain situations might crop up, and then yeah, it might work out in your favor. So never stop learning in that sense.
Okay. So, if an 18-year-old self of you met you today, would she be surprised, proud, or hey, what are you doing?
Probably all of the above. I think I mean
What did you think that you would be when you were 18-year-old? I'm very curious to know.
I don't know. Like I mean, at that time we don't really think that far in the, you're young and like, okay, just whatever comes, and but I think I'll be pretty proud of where there's a good balance of, there's purpose, and there's enjoyment. There's a balance, I would think, so I can't complain.
Okay. My last question for the day. When are you opening your pastry shop? Or if it is already, where is the details?
I hope so. Like, I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a high risk. I mean, that's gonna be investment needed, and so yeah, hopefully at some point in the future.
Like in terms of the dynamics of the business of how the entire pastry place runs as well, right? Like in terms of baking and stuff, is there something that you would want to tell us? Because I don't have much idea about how this entire desserts kind of shop works.
Okay, so I'm based from home, and usually someone puts in an order, and so it's customized birthday cakes, or even my specialties like Japanese cheesecake, canneles. There's so I make those, and then it gets delivered to wherever you are. So that cuts the whole having a space. Although having a venue, having a cake shop will be really nice. I mean, that's a dream for sure. Hopefully that comes to fruition someday.
For sure, all the very best for that.
Thank you so
With
much.
that, Su Yin, is there anything that you thought I would ask you today and I have not asked?
I think you've covered pretty much all of the aspects of it. But yeah, it's thanks for all of the questions, and even I have to sort of think about stuff.
Lovely. Thank you so much for making time today. I know it's a holiday and you've made time for us.
No.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.